Before we do anything else, let's change one of our default settings. Remember, when we started this new file, we chose Guitar Standard as our option. One of the defaults of Guitar Standard was 120 beats per minute as our tempo. No one's going to play the tune that slow, so let's speed that up a little bit. Let's go to our MIDI button, which is this speaker right here. Click that open. Our default was set at 120. Highlight that, and let's move that up to 180. Click OK. And now our tune will play back at 180 beats per minute. And this is what it will sound like. Let's go back to the start of verse 2, which is measure 17. Put our cursor anywhere there in the measure and hit play. Now the tempo sounds much better. But you'll also notice that there's some dead spots in our tablature. If we go back to measure 17, right here, this is where our first verse has ended and our second verse has started. If we play a few measures before the ending and the start of the second verse, this is what it sounds like. Did you hear that dead spot right there at the start of measure 17? Now we can fix this by tying verse 1 and verse 2 together by using what we call tied notes. The sound that we would like to create would be to have this C chord sound all the way through into the next measure before our melody note starts again. And the way we do this is to repeat our C chord in measure 17. We will put a 3 on the 5th string, a 2, a 0, and a 1. And in order to tie these together, we will highlight all of these notes, and we'll come up and we'll take our tied note and click it. And as you can see, we have taken this chord and we've allowed it to continue to sound into the next measure. Let's listen to what this sounds like. Now we can do the same thing in measure 20. Up at measure 20, we have a dotted half note, but we want that to carry over into the next measure. We will take this C note, which is a 1. We'll enter a 1 here, and we'll want to tie this note to this note here. We can go up and we can hit the tied note on our note palette. Another way to do this is to hit the L key on our keyboard. And by hitting the L key, we have tied these notes together. The other thing we want to do is make sure that this note rings through half the measure. So we want to change this note and make sure it's a half note. Let's do the same thing at the end of our tab. At the end of our tab, it kind of ends abruptly. Listen to this. We want to go ahead and carry this note all the way over into the next measure. The first thing we want to do is change this note to a whole note so it carries through this measure, and then add it to the next measure as a 1, and then either go up here to our note palette or hit L on the keyboard. And now we've tied those notes together. And we can also put one more bass note in, which would be our C note, which would be a 3. And that would end off our song. Let's make sure that this C note is muted. We'll go up here and click the X. And now it will sound like this. Normally, tied notes are used to let a note ring through the end of one measure into the next measure. But tied notes can also be used in other ways. And in our next segment, we will be dealing with what we call anticipated notes, and you'll see how tied notes play a part in this.